So CitizenCon, the annual event where CRG tell us a bunch of stuff about Star Citizen and Squadron 42, just happened this past weekend. And there is a lot of information to take in, including some videos, some pictures, and a bunch of conversation. So I want to go through each of the presentations, talk about the things I enjoyed, the things I hated, and the things that were just okay. There's a lot of different topics, so we're just going to jump right into it. The first presentation they showed us was a bunch of work on Pyro. Previously, all we'd seen of Pyro is some sketches and most of Pyro 3. But during CitizenCon, they went through pretty much every single planet as well as a moon and showed us all of the different terrestrial things that we'll find there. It was very good to finally see these, especially because some of these are using assets that we've known have been in production for months and years now. And they put them together absolutely beautifully. Each planet feels completely unique, with new rock formations, new shrubbery, and new biomes. Pyro 4 has a huge crater that you can see from space that creates a bunch of mountain ranges emanating from it. That in combination with the crimson grass and the red trees made it really off-putting. They showed one of the moons of Pyro, which has this really cool scar that goes across the surface of the moon, all of which is filled with obsidian with some absolutely amazing looking light properties. Another one is Pyro 6 has all of these lake-filled craters as well for you to explore. They've made some really atmospheric and epic changes to their planet designs that make me really excited to visit Pyro. You can see some locations where you could have some races, some bunkers, or some just large-scale fights. And not to mention, Pyro overall, the skybox. This is the first proper look we got of the skybox of Pyro as well, and you can see the nebulas actually shining light down onto the planets and moons when they're dark. This is great, because I am extremely tired of the Stanton skybox. It is very boring. 90% of the fun of this game for a lot of people is how good the locations look, and I think they've absolutely knocked it out of the park with Pyro. First presentation gets 4 Uvidgas out of 5. I definitely absolutely butchered that pronunciation. Next up, we have a super early look at the new investigation missions. But it's not really super new. There's a couple of missions in game already that do emulate what they are trying to create here. Basically, they want to be able to give us some missions that make us feel like a true detective. So while the base concept wasn't new, it was very good to hear where they wanted to go with this. They mentioned having some clues that aren't necessarily credible, which I love the idea of trying to figure out which ones are right. As well as these missions kind of being also like multi-stage, where once you've found out what happened, you then have to travel across the system to find the cave where the person may have died. I am all for missions that are more story focused, because there is only so many times that I can do a mercenary mission or a bounty hunter mission. It was a little bit disappointing to hear they were so early in the development of these missions, as it feels like they kind of already have all this core tech, they just need to make some stuff. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the Reclaimer investigating mission was a precursor to this. My actual one concern is, are we just going to complete these in a couple of hours? Are there going to be enough of them for us to keep going, or are they going to be procedurally generated? So hopefully we can find out about that soon. Investigations gets 3 Udvigas out of 5. I shouldn't be allowed to leave the country. This presentation I was super excited for because I absolutely love doing bunkers. They're a fun little thing that I can do for 15 minutes, grab a bit of loot, kill a couple of enemies, and get out of there. But it also means I've done them hundreds upon hundreds of times, and they're very boring. Both levels are copy-paste, every single bunker is a copy-paste, more or less. So it was awesome to hear that this is not what they wanted. So what CRG want to do is they want to have small, medium, and large bunkers. Some bunkers potentially giving you 60 minutes of gameplay. So they showed us a bunch of concept art and what they were thinking of. Firstly, making the bunkers look good from the outside and giving them more of a brave appearance on the landscape. Also having the ability to enter the UGF from multiple points. Then actually having the transition from above ground to below ground a lot cooler, especially when you come into this very large open area, and adding in more gameplay opportunities and rooms as you progress through the UGF. One of the things that they mentioned was having a puzzle where you would have an entire stack of data centers submerged in water and then activating them to get unsubmerged from water so that you can steal from it, destroy them, whatever your mission is. For the majority of the presentation, they were just showing us this concept work, which got me really disappointed because once again, I thought they were a little bit further ahead. But silly me, CRG must have been listening to my brain, because then we saw a little bit of proof of concept in-engine work. Now, it wasn't many, but with the rate that CRG have been releasing things that are actually gameplay focused and actually have levels to them, I'm pretty optimistic that we will be seeing this sooner rather than later. Most likely, we'll probably see at least one of these in-game before the end of next year. Can't wait, excited to see more. Underground gets 4 out of 5. This one's a big one and seems to have already split the community in half. The flight model in Star Citizen has changed so many times you could probably have a bunch of different solo games using each different flight model. But as it stands right now, there's a couple of concerns about the flight model, especially jousting. Pretty much every PvP and most PvE fights end up with you just going full speed, turning around, going full speed, turning around, and repeating this process until your enemy's dead. And it makes sense. It is a very, very defensive way to play Star Citizen. So now we have this new thing called Master Mode. When your ship is in SCM mode, your speed gets hard capped at around 300 meters a second, and you get access to your weapons and shields, as well as mining lasers, salvage lasers, basically anything operational. If you go into Quantum mode, you can go max velocity in your ship, but your shields start failing, you can't shoot a mine or anything. It's basically runaway mode. That mode also gives you access to this thing called Quantum Boost, which allows you to travel distances of up to 50,000 kilometers faster than if you were flying normally, but slower than if you were in a quantum jump. So all of this means that combat will slow down, and you should expect as well that ships will be much closer together. But it also has implications of how much riskier the game could become for non-combative players. As all we've seen is a little bit of footage and a little bit of talk, I don't feel qualified to answer a lot of the questions people have about it. But I can say we don't have it in our hands yet. It's not going to be balanced immediately. But I think a lot of people have issue more with ship balancing than they do with this actual system. And I think the system's great. It was good to hear as well that this is all working in Squadron 42. They just need to plug in numbers for the over 100 ships that we have in the Persistent universe. Master Modes gets 3 Udvidgas out of 5. Lorville is old and boring. They're making Lorville new and interesting. Lorville Rework gets 5 Udvidgas out of 5. Engineering gameplay is a thing that I think a lot of players have been waiting for. In all of science fiction, there is some sort of cool thing about being the guy running around your ship and repairing it. But for Star Citizen, we've gotten so little information over what engineering actually means for a player. We've heard them talk about, you have these ship systems and you have these things that you need to fix, but what will that actually mean for us? Well, they talked a little bit about that in this presentation. Firstly, it's a much more complex system than I was thinking it was going to be, meaning that even in ships like a Hammerhead, you may want actually 2 engineers running around performing tasks. In addition, it turns out it's not just going to be vehicles that are going to be using these systems. It's going to be stations, cities, bunkers, basically anything that has power or life support is going to be using this system. Imagine having an enemy in trade and sabotaging one of their refineries by taking out their power cells. It has some really, really cool implications. CIG showed us a couple of examples of what you would actually encounter. For example, trying to get oxygen back into an area on your ship that is depressurized. You might be running around the ship, trying to find the right power cells, rerouting enough power and blocking off certain sections. And there's also consumables, which means we might have to actually prepare once we're getting onto a multi-crew ship. One thing that I think a lot of people missed in this presentation is the access control, where a captain is going to allow people to use certain parts of the ship through mobi-glass or something else. Meaning you can make it so that the pilot only operates the pilot controls. You can give yourself a lieutenant that can operate, everything but the self-destruct button. Giving people specific access in your ship to a bunch of different things is really the actual beginning of ship roles. Also, being able to turn off gravity is really funny. Power play gets 4 Udvidgas out of 5. So Talking Ship is the one that everyone waits for every single year, because there's always going to be some new ships and some news usually about some ships currently in progress. I don't want to talk too much about this one because I do want to make some videos for these ships, but we did get a series of new ships called the Crusader Spirit. For a person like me that doesn't really like the Cutlass or the Freelancer, I think I've just found my new daily driver. We've got cargo, bombing, and transport variants of the Spirit, which is great because it immediately means it competes with Freelancers and Cutlasses by having that variety. We also got an in-depth look at the Corsair, which wasn't really a surprise. We've been seeing it on ISC, but I was really happy to be able to see it more in-engine. And I absolutely love how the co-pilot seat goes down and underneath the pilot seat. This ship is supposed to be coming out in 3.18, so hopefully we'll see it in November. And I know a lot of people are really, really looking forward to that one. And they released live to the game, the STV. This is the new Greycat racing vehicle that got leaked last week. Now, the thing I do want to talk about is the ship vote. So during CitizenCon, what they usually do is they give us a bunch of different concepts of ships and say, hey, which ones do you want us to work on first? And they inevitably end up releasing all of them. This year, they've changed it around a bit, and they've actually told us what they want to make and just asked us what's the manufacturer. So we're going to be getting a mining ship in between the Mole and the Orion. This is actually not at all what I was expecting. I didn't think we would get one in between the two, but trust me, it is a very pleasant surprise. Mining is my absolute favorite thing to do in Star Citizen, so it's cool to see that they're expanding that a bit more. Though there are a lot of people complaining that you can't vote for Drake. Sorry, Drake fans. RSI, MISC, or Argo. Vote for Argo. Talking Ships gets 4 Udvidgas out of 5. All right. If you watch CitizenCon, you know what's next. After all of these amazing presentations and these really, really quick-paced presentations, Chris walked out. Now, Chris Roberts is very, very important to the game, and we've been hearing more and more for some backers that, hey, we don't hear from Chris enough. Well, now we've heard from Chris too much. The end of CitizenCon was a 2-hour-long discussion about features in Squadron 42 that are coming to Star Citizen. Now, that's great. That's news that I want to hear about. That's things I want to see, as well as a little bit of a glimpse on, you know, what's going on in Squadron 42. But the problem was, while they did have some footage, there was in total maybe 2.5 minutes of footage spread out across 2 hours. And the vast majority of the 2 hours was them just talking about things that we already know. It really broke up the whole CitizenCon and made me a little bit disappointed. But some of the stuff they talked about in there was actually pretty cool. They've just got to mush it, make it a bit smaller. They talked about FPS scanning, interaction, parkour, EVA 2.0, and a bunch of other things that are getting made in Squadron 42 and being brought over into the PU. If you want to see a really good summary of everything they talked about, make sure to go check out Space Tomato Gaming's newest video. I'll link it in the comments, but he does a really, really good job of summarizing what they were unable to summarize. But before you do go to that other video, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Huh? Chris Roberts' double power hour gets 2 Udvigas out of 5. The very last thing that we got to look at was the brand new community hub. This is supposed to be the place for you to go to share content, check out videos, and interact with a bunch of other members of the community. And honestly, I think they've done a really good job. I love the integration of streams at the bottom. I mean, of course I do. They're going to show my stream on the website. But I think aesthetically, it looks really good and it feels really easy to navigate. My only concern with this is if people don't use it. This could be a really, really amazing tool at getting people together and creating communities for Star Citizen. But if people aren't using it, that's nothing. So hopefully they bang on advertisements about this constantly.
They really do make all this possible. I'm living the dream. We all are.
My favorite thing about the community, it'd be impossible for me to narrow it down to one. And if somebody said you had to, I'd probably just turn and walk away.
I do think that this was the best CitizenCon ever, mostly because the only one I've been to was the online one from last year. I'm really keen to hear what everyone else thought about the presentation, so make sure to put a comment below about what you might have liked, what you thought should have been in there but wasn't, and are you like me? Do you have a new favorite daily driver after this weekend? Make sure to subscribe to see all my Star Citizen content, make sure to like if you did like the video, and if you want to help support the channel and support my streaming, consider checking out the Patreon. I've just started it up with a couple of perks and I'm looking to add some more perks in there as well, so give it a look. Hopefully, CitizenCon 2953 is live, so that I can see a bunch of you and a bunch of people I've met playing Star Citizen. CitizenCon 2952 gets 5 Udvigas out of 5. Catch you guys next time.